This meeting is being recorded.
Whoa.
Cool.
Okay.
Nice voice. That's news.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know.
All right. So welcome to our Make Artifact Validation More Robust road mapping session. So this is the first session out of probably 2 or 3. But let's see. Goal is to refine our roadmap for SIG Release for 2024. Next year's 2024, yeah, and beyond. And now I would like to move it over to Laurie. Do we want to share the Miro board by screen?
Yeah.
Do you want to do it?
Or
should I do?
I guess it's fine. Why don't you do it, and then we'll see how it goes. And if it's too awkward, I'll take over.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if you have done one of these sessions with me before, you probably hopefully remember how it goes. Our goal here today is just to get as clear as possible about what the team needs to do on behalf of this objective in the roadmap, which is making artifact validation more robust. So we'll do a lot of breaking things down. We will add lots of notes to this Miro. We already have a few. We will look at the process flow that Sasha has drafted. This is currently focusing on how the image promoter works today. He's basically recreated the steps for the general flow from when the user changes the images YAML for images in GitHub all the way to a signed-in replicated image. These yellow post-its are the lines in the code where these actions take place. He's also created an architecture diagram just to highlight some of the main features. So I think what we should do is let's just go over this board and what we've got so far. And then because we've talked about a refactoring job of the image promoter, we've talked about refactoring, we've also talked about rewriting for the interest of sustainability and the time that the team probably has to dedicate to the work. I think refactoring is the direction we will go in first, and then at the end we can see if like the whole thing needs to be rewritten. The idea will be, what would we need to change about the image promoter to make it support the goal. So we have a roadmap item already that's making the artifact verification more robust. The link takes you to the related enhancement. And in past conversations, including the last SIG release meeting, we talked about a couple of things we'd like to achieve. One I've drafted is a user story of sorts. As a downstream consumer of Kate's releases, I would like my releases to comply with SLSA 3, so I can be maximally confident that my release hasn't been tampered with. We can adjust the language on this. This is just what we had noted in the past. And then we identified a couple of tasks, tech-related goals. Finishing the SLSA spec, moving the SLSA tester, generating SBOMs in JSON, moving the SLSA attestation to 1.0, ensuring interoperability between tools, making sure every relevant tool meets current industry practices, and here's the link with the related KEP, and signing SBOMs through the cosign tool right after generating it. I'm not sure who, this looks like an addition. Is the author of this here?
It's not me, at least.
Okay. Looks like it means signing the SBOMs with cosign right after generating it with the BOM tool. Okay, just clean that up a little. Okay, so that's one part of our work. The next thing is a little more about product management and UX. So we'd like to do some user research to find out who our users and downstream consumers are. Some goals around that are developing a mechanism to collect regular feedback. The CNCF might be able to help us with some surveys and data collection. And then we want to know if there's already data about who is using our tools. And then finally, what we have here is another user story. As a downstream consumer of K8s releases, I would like to be able to check the integrity of binaries, container images, documents, and other files that form a Kubernetes release so I can trust that the release is secure. And that's what we've got. So I think if we go to these two, which are more technical, like having to do with the process, the tools, and we put the user research item down below, then as we go through the workflow, we'll want to think about these goals. These are user stories and fulfilling these requirements, and then also the tech goals that are related to make that possible. How is everybody doing so far? Any questions, comments, concerns? I'm checking the chat to see if anybody's commenting there. No. Okay. So let's move to the process flow. This process flow captures what is true today. So it's not a future thinking plan in any way. It's just simply how does the tool work right now? And here is the link to the tool. I will drop this in the chat, just so you all have it available. As we go through this flow, we'll want to think about pain points. Those pain points could include doesn't work reliably, the code is brittle, there's no tests. So anything you can think of that either already creates a problem for the user or might, because it's just not sturdy enough to support its basic operations. So the first step is where we have our user. They want to change the image's YAML for the image in GitHub. Are there any problems with that step?
I think this is one of the parts where users requested how to, we promote those images by using a pull request, which changes the list of digests basically. And there's no real way for reviewers of that PR to verify this. So.
Okay.
I mean, it can be done manually, but most of the reviewers will probably just approve the PR because there's no real verification step which ensures that, or maybe there is. I'm not sure. The current CI, maybe Arnaud or Marco noted, or anyone else on the call, if there's some verification if those digests actually exist.
Yeah, there is a way to verify them. So what people often do is when they open a PR with a new image, right, they often link to the build that created it. So we should be able to work out a particular commit, run a proud job that run that cloud build job that created that image. So that's what people often use as proof for the digesters that they want to promote. But that process, I don't think is formalized right now. So
it's not formalized, you said?
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm. So it can go in different ways. Did I capture this correctly? When a user opens a PR, there's a link to the created build, and people use this link as proof for digests they want to promote. Is that correct? Hello?
I'm looking
Arnaud
to
has a hand up.
Arnaud, Marco, what do you think?
Yeah, so basically, there's no
there's no way to verify the SHA of an image because
Okay.
I would say the context is we delegate the responsibility of establish which image should be put in production, but we don't verify the provenance, or we don't verify the provenance of the image, except the fact that we know it's coming from a staging container registry owned by the community. But it could be everything else. No, sorry, it could not. But that's like the only validation. We know the source of an image basically an image eligible to promotion. But we don't verify what is published. Like anyone could any maintainer, because we scope the responsibility to the maintainer of sub-project and say, okay, you have access to a staging environment where you can build your image. After that, it's up to you to do the promotion. So we establish that trust inside the staging registry. But nothing prevent a maintainer with a staging repo to push I would say, something that can impact the production registry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like the question of basically Sasha is that asking if in pre-summit, I would say at pull request opening, we'll do the verification, which is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like two aspects to the problem is like how we sure the SHA we provide for promotion it's valid, and how we basically possibly scan the image for any CVE high and critical.
Mm-hmm. Right. So this isn't in place today. These two steps.
Yeah, because the tooling is not supporting those use cases.
Sorry, I clicked over to my Echo Cloud. Not in place today. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. Scanning for CVEs might be a blocking factor because sometimes you can't really ensure that there's no CVE. For example, it can be the base image and maybe you don't have a way to fix it yet. Maybe what can be done in this case is to requery provenance. I think that Puerco did some work, for example, that we can generate provenance for images and artifacts that are built in Prow. So, for example, that we require that if you want to build to register Cat as IO, that it has to be built in Prow, and that we validate that data. Maybe something like that could be that might maybe break some use cases if someone wants to build outside Prow. But we can say that Prow is secure. We know that you can run job only if you're authorized, and we ensure it in that way.
Okay, I'm going to ask that we steer away from technical implementation for a while, and we really hone in on the problems that we're trying to solve. So really the pain points. We can talk about how to execute in future. So what we have here is we don't have a way to ensure the SHA is valid. We don't have a way to scan the image for any CVE that's higher critical. I think all the other notes address this. Currently, we have maintainers that could push something to staging that could impact the registry unknowingly. We don't have a formal process. There is a way to verify digest, but these other issues point out that that's not enough. What else? What else is making this first step unreliable, difficult, unclear?
I'm not sure if it's difficult, but we provide a tool called KPromo for doing the image promotion. And I think for the future, it would be also a goal to use the same tool for any artifact promotion. So we should reevaluate if it's if there are easier ways for users to consume the tool. We already did this by providing like binaries for Kpromo and stuff like that. But generally, we have to think about the user interface if we should make it even simpler for end users to promote anything.
Right. So that points back to our user research and asking people about their experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you need that data to implement any of these other steps, or are all of these other steps just independently known by the group as shortcomings to solve?
I don't think so. I think it's more nice to have.
This is a nice to have.
Yeah, because it
Okay.
works right now somehow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything else seems to point directly towards stability, security, the main goal. Everything that Arno said. Okay. So I think we can move on. I think we've just identified like these two steps, something we'd look into, formalizing a process, and maybe from those we have some positive runoff on these other concerns or gaps. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add to this step before we move on? All right, then we can always revisit it if something comes to mind, or maybe we uncover something as we go through these next steps. Okay, the next one involves prow, and it's running this image promo job. So what could be better about that, if anything?
We have a little bit of problem that this job can be slow. It is
Okay.
actually, for example, the category releases. It is image promotion is something that takes the most of time. It can take 2 or 3 hours or something like
wow.
that. So I'm not sure if it is possible to solve that, but something that should be investigated.
What is the average for this kind of operation, or is there no other comparable operation?
Right now, for when cutting Kuberentes releases, it takes 30 to 40 minutes per release.
Okay.
And for smaller projects, it can take several minutes, but they don't promote to as many registry and as many images as we do promote for when cutting Kubernetes releases.
Okay, so is this because of the mirroring in 30 different places and that taking time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we have to mirror ideally images, and then we have to take like care of signatures and mirror signatures as well, and then eventually if we add stuff like hashworms and so on, it might just increase time and eventually it might become unsustainable.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what mirroring takes the most time, like the mirroring of X, if it's the images, the signatures, the SBOMs? Have you been able to pinpoint the source of this time?
I don't think that we did any investigation on that, to be honest.
Okay. How so?
I think that we tried to like see how much we can parallel stuff, but
Okay.
then we started hitting the technical problems with rate limits, and then yeah, stopped with that work.
Okay. So you were already trying to figure out what was causing this length of time to be so long, like what kind of artifacts, and then this rate limiting happened and you stopped. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to figure out, okay, which type of artifact is extending the length of time. Okay.
I have a question. So this process used to be a lot slower before we did a lot of optimizations. I guess my question is, how long do you think it should take? I'm looking at Kubernetes releases, in particular, because that's the one particular instance of this process that that promotes a lot of images. Because we run this multiple times a day with different projects that promote 1, 2 images, and the time for those jobs are reasonable. It's pretty quick. For how long should a Kubernetes promotion take, particularly images?
Maybe it's hard to say the concrete time, but personally, I would like to see more parallelization so that we can eventually promote multiple releases at the same time. That can buy us a lot of time. That might be the ideal case. Speaking of time, how much each job should take, I don't really know exactly. Hard to provide a number.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. One thing we could think about, other than making it more concurrent or more parallel, than is having a more asynchronous work style. Like, are we happy when we have the image promoted somewhere and the replication stuff happens in the background? So that was one idea to make it even faster. I think if we speak about if something or a CI job takes longer than 30 minutes, then it starts to get like painful for engineers. But I think waiting for something like 10 minutes or something like this would probably be enough. But I wouldn't say it right now. It took me like yesterday, the whole release of RC1 took me 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
how
this
much
was-
about do you spend building Kubernetes and getting the assets ready?
A rough hour.
I'm sorry,
sorry,
Sasha.
but-
So go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I missed. You said it took you 6 hours, right? And
Yeah.
how much of that was actually preparing the assets to be released?
Round about 1 hour.
So you're saying it takes an hour to build this thing, and then maybe another few hours to have the releases in the right places.
Sasha, were you saying it took 6 hours to build the latest release?
The whole process for creating the release was 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that is not including the mirroring, or is it?
It is including everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good benchmark to have. So we moved discussion about addressing the mirroring process below. We decoupled it from this topic earlier. So should we keep that, or should we try to address it a little bit because of these long lags? Like we
Well,
want
the current architecture means we do mirroring synchronously at the same time as promotion. We need to change the architecture of the tool to make that work. It's not the case today.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in that case, we do have to discuss mirroring.
Okay.
Unless we want to think about changing the way the tool works and split the process up.
Yeah, so I think we do.
Yeah.
So then I think that points to splitting the tool could help us out here. Okay. What else is troublesome about this step? Anything we haven't mentioned?
I mean, when we speak about mirroring, then we can also speak about signing. Right now, we sign everything in parallel right away. But we could also say, okay, the signatures are not available right after the release has been cut, but maybe we have a reconciliation job running in the background, which kind of ensures that the signatures in place for every mirror. And we just do it as a like a regular CI task, which we overwatch after the release.
Okay. I think we mentioned that before as well, part of the mirroring conversation. But that also points to splitting the tool, right? Like you would split out or rework this operation. Okay.
So we have hands up in the chat. So feel free to just chime in if you want.
Yeah, because I don't see the chat right now with the mirror.
Yeah, Sasha, you mentioned that it took 6 hours, but I think Dims mentioned it took it used to took 3 hours. And are you sure it was just a single run or multiple run?
I mean, we do like a mock stage and mock release, which already takes around 1.5 hours. And what we also have, which is like another variable on top of that, is that we build the packages and we have to wait for, or we now wait for all of the packages to be available actually. And this is running completely in OBS. So it's so we basically have to wait for architectures like S390X, which can take quite some time to create the packages. So there are some steps which actually have some variable time, but the RC1 was quite a simple case because, for example, there are also cases where we cut 2 releases, like when we create a branch, then we create the alpha.0 or alpha.1 for 130 together with the 129 RC0. So we have 2 releases. You know,
So it's taking more time because there's more involved. Is that the TLDR?
it takes hours, so to say. It takes at least the full engineering day from my point of view.
Right. But given what's being said about what Dims was sharing, that it used to take 3 hours, is it taking longer now? Is that true? Or is it, and if it is true, is it because they're just more involved in the release process?
So it's taking longer because it's technically taking longer, yes.
Yeah.
I
And
would say there. Yes, sorry.
Oh, so I was just going to ask again if that's because there's just more involved in the process now than there used to be.
Yeah, I mean, we have more
Yeah.
features, we ship more stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah, but there's one important thing to clarify. As Sasha said about OBS, that is correct, and I will not go too much into that at this meeting. But another thing that significantly extended the time needed to build the releases is at some point in the past we were promoting images in parallel, and we stopped doing that. And for example, in the past it took 30 minutes for all releases, and that was not really a problem. Now it is taking 30 minutes per release. For example, if you're cutting 1 release, it is not much difference. But if you're cutting, let's say, 4 releases that we do once a month when we have patch releases, then it is extended for like 2 hours or something like that. Additionally, than it was in the past.
Yeah, and this brings me also back to the point, if the CI job, which does the actual initial promotion, the time is not significant enough, then we can do it in parallel. But if we have like 3 or 4 PRs having the same, or which will consume like 1 hour after they got merged, then we have to sum up this time. This is the biggest problem right now.
Okay.
So we can't really, for patch releases, I'm not sure if we did probably with the last patch release, but we have a hard time to do the job within one time zone.
Okay. So I'm hearing that there's also different lengths for different types of releases, different release scenarios. So it would probably make sense to just make a table that shows the current length of time for those different scenarios so that, and we have benchmarks for improvement. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think we can do that. We can start right away next week with the final release.
Okay.
One last item before we move on. One of the reasons why I asked how long should it take, particularly the image promotion, we do need to add new mirrors. I mean, I understand that adding new mirrors might not give us much benefit right now, but it is something we should do. But that depends entirely on how long we think it should take and what the trade-offs are.
Maybe one, let's say, for orientation, we can say that image promotion should take longer than it takes for artifacts to build. Like it shouldn't take longer than stage. In total, maybe just an idea. If you want to have some time frame, how long it should take.
Mm-hmm. I think it would make sense to just kind of go through the release next week and log how long it takes for each step, like each primary step, and then you can figure out if that makes sense or not. But these, the timetable will be good for setting. Like you want to measure the impact of the work, so then you will have a baseline. You know, if you see improvements, okay, it got faster. It didn't get faster. The change didn't work. All of that. Do we have anything more to say on this step? I'll just note the time. We've only gone through 2 steps and we are already 33 minutes in. So that's not a complaint. I just think we'll need to meet again. Let's move on to validating and parsing input data. What's happening here?
That's basically what is happening inside of the job. So I think we can now speak more detailed about what we could improve here. I mean, we were already pretty detailed in the previous step, right?
Okay, so you're saying that these first 2 steps, we've talked about a lot of the things that we would change or improve or that are problematic about these remaining steps?
Well, maybe we get more ideas from folks on this call about the
Yeah.
single steps.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, before we do that, is that what we just did? We logged a lot of notes that are actually pointing to these steps. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Why don't we try to move them, or should we keep them where they are because they're actually just in the right place in the sequence?
We can move them. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought about keeping them because it might take a lot of time to like pinpoint what exactly is causing some of those stuff. So this is like we are talking about job in general.
Yeah, okay. I think that makes sense if there's ambiguity around when these things actually get triggered. For now, yeah, the way we run through this and then we'll be able to plot them better. So with that in mind, group who have been quiet, what's on your mind about these steps and how they are not working and how they might be better?
I would say for the first 2 steps that they are pretty straightforward, but this might be just me thing. But I find the code for those 2 steps to not be super readable and super easy to work with.
Okay.
I think we had some situations in the past where we tried to change something and it caused the issue with promoter. It is generally speaking of the promoter tooling, it's hard to test. And when code is not like very readable, it can be hard to introduce changes without being worried that you're going to break some use case or that you're going to break image promotion or something like that.
Yeah, so we've established that point, and that's basically the crux of the whole objective. What we need to do now is pinpoint like where those problems lie. So that's why Sasha has teased out the functions that are related to these steps. So if we go by step, could we think about which of these is the most brittle and problematic? Is there one that just
I think starting from validating to the end is like where problems happen. The first 2 are something that happens very fast. Others are what actually takes the time and what are making issues.
Okay, but what we're talking about right now is focusing on the code that is problematic and not thoroughly tested that is causing a lot of problems. So if we just say the entire process, we haven't really gotten very specific. So my question is like, is it possible to get more specific about which of these steps is really like stand out the worst?
Sasha, I have a question for you. So in the promoter manifest, we specify a field called service account, and it always has the same value. I am wondering, this should be quite trivial to fix, but we should get rid of that field.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got a use case where multiple Google Cloud identities are doing anything with images, with image promotion.
Yeah.
And that was a hold up from, I don't know, some time ago.
What problems are being caused by that field being there today?
Well, it doesn't affect any of the things we discussed earlier.
Okay, so why do you want to get rid of it?
I want to get rid of it because it doesn't do anything for us. And there's extra bloat in the code to support it.
Okay. So let's focus more though on what is being affected in this process. I'll repeat my question from earlier. Which of these steps represents the most brittle, problematic, not reliable code, not tested code? Is it possible to tease out?
Yes, it's definitely signing images and replicating signatures. This is completely broken at this time.
Okay,
so this
these
is the last two steps.
Yeah. Okay, so we will call them, like, for now we'll have a P0 for each of these.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to know that we integrated the signing and the verification later on. So if we question the steps, how we handle the data before those two, then we can probably also make signing and verifying faster.
Mm-hmm. So just because these are the worst steps doesn't necessarily mean you would like be laser focused and start working on the related code, right?
I think we can't fix the issue if we just start with the past ones. I think we have to roll out the issue from the beginning.
Right. It's a domino effect, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So given that, should we go back to these notes then and try to plot where they come up? Because with that domino effect in mind, we know that we'll need to make changes at the earlier part of the sequence to make the latter part of the sequence better.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's do it.
But
then.
I think this should be relatively easy as well, because first two parts is what is matter of seconds. Then validating signatures, there's two problems with that. The first one being, I'm not sure how much exactly it takes time. The second one is, do we really need it? Because there have been discussions in the past, like, should we really validate signatures from staging, and should we even sign in staging, or should we use stuff like provenance? So it needs decision on if we need it or not.
So you're pointing
And then,
sorry, one thing at a time. You're pointing to this thing and saying maybe
to
we
this
don't
thing.
need this step.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is the decision that we need to make.
Okay. Decide.
And like,
okay, what's the second thing?
yeah, that was the thing. And I'm not really sure how much it takes, but I would say that it is the most significant thing that takes time. I think where it actually starts to take time is like for pushing each image. This is where the problem appears to be, because it just takes time to.
So this is taking a lot of time.
Yes.
Okay.
I think maybe Sasha can correct me, but I think we have 2,000 to 3,000 of push operations or something like that. I think it was quite a large number.
Yeah, that's true.
We did that, yeah.
2,000 or
But come-
3,000 what?
Push operations.
Push operations, okay.
Yeah, we have multiple layers per image and stuff like that. So everything sums up to a huge amount of network traffic going through the line. But we could, going one step back to the validating of the signatures, we could also think about doing the validation more strictly. Right now, we just check if they are signed or not. And if they are not signed, we probably don't do anything at all. But we could say, okay, we do it as part of the PR, something like this, as a pre-submit shop that we check the data more strictly if it's available, so that way we could decrease the time for the promotion if we just carve out the validation into the pre-submit pull request check.
Okay. So that's a potential solution.
So what is the minimal amount of push operation would be we push one image from staging into one production registry, right? So that's the minimal amount. Or can we even minimize that, would be my question.
Okay.
This is, by the way, related to the next step, not this one.
Yeah.
So it points to the image digest
Yeah.
step. Okay, I'll just put a little arrow.
So in an ideal world, do we have infrastructure where we could say, okay, we have it in staging in a separated environment, but we pushing that image to production is just a copy from one bucket to another or something like this, which just takes which is much faster than doing complete image pull and image push.
Okay. So things to investigate. I just want to go back to the Miro board for a moment and see if we have forgotten about any of our goals. So when we talk about making this more robust, so is everything, yeah, everything we're discussing is in service to compliance with SALSA 3. And that focuses on the interoperability, the SBOM generation. Like we've said before, we really need to make image promoter work better to make all of this simpler and more realistic. So just checking in, that's still true and that's still the plan. Is that right?
I would say it is the plan.
Okay. Anyone else?
But
Anyone object? Okay, oh, go ahead.
I think that we need to decide on if we want to talk about extending it with new features before we fix what is broken right now. Or like, should we try to have a big picture, plan everything? Because maybe it might be easier, like, okay, let's focus on fixing, but then we have risk of that if adding something new in the future might break what we did before. And then when we end up in the similar situation that now what we added is taking a lot of time because it was not planned properly. Now that is a little bit of a risk.
Yep. So usually not a great idea to build new features on top of unstable foundations. So that's why we're focusing so much on the fixing part today. So I agree with you, Nick. Just to my earlier question, so if, in case somebody objects, our goal right now is really just to make this image promoter work and then work better.
Yeah, but we also can keep future enhancements in mind and outline them. For example, the SBOM generation for the images could be part of that. So that's one feature which should be added later on top of that.
Does everybody in this group, like, if you were offered, like,
with regards to the SBOM, why is this a problem for the image promoter? Whoever's generating the image should generate an SBOM in a format of our choosing, and then we consume it.
Yeah, that's true. I just saw the source code blob, which is right now doing nothing, which mentions that we should generate a SBOM as part of the image promotion. And I think we can rethink that idea. And as you mentioned, just produce the content earlier and just move it around on promotion.
Yeah, because that would make our code base very lean with regards to supply chain security. And we could just verify that whatever image we're trying to promote has an SBOM. And if it doesn't, just refuse to promote it.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
maybe even be strict about how it was generated and what format it is and what kind of information is in there. That's the preferred approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to my question that was asking, like, if this whole group, is there anybody here who does not want to work on making the image promoter better, but would like to work on a different element of the overall goal? I guess you can put your request in the chat. Like, I don't really want to work on image promoter. I'd rather do something else. And then we can help organize the team with that information. So should we now plot our piles of Post-its to the steps where they relate? If they are not in the right place already. So for example, the process isn't formalized. That seems like that covers the entire operation. So it would come at the beginning. Reviewing and verifying PRs.
Yeah, that's part of the process as well. It should stay at the beginning.
Okay. And then this was related. It's like another point. The nice to have was just about which tool we use. So that would affect the whole process. Ensuring the SHA is valid.
Okay, so that might be part of like where we check for the signature, maybe.
Okay. What is, does anybody?
I would elaborate a bit more on that. I thought we already check if the image exists before passing the pre-submit job. Is that not the case today?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure if you put in a non-existent shard, the pre-submit fails and says the image doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we summarize what we should check that we don't know? Check if
We should check if we verify that an image digest that has been referenced actually exists. Different question is, did we create this image digest using appropriate tools?
using appropriate tools.
They're using a process that we signed up on, as in, like, for example, somebody didn't manually push that and things like that.
Okay, well, yeah, so tools and process then. So we have 2 points here. Marco says that the first one would go under validating signatures. Do they both go under validating signatures? When do we scan for?
I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Not sure what other folks think about it, but I'd say yes.
Yeah. Does anybody here see it differently? We can place them there for now, and if somebody decides, hey, wait a minute, I think that belongs somewhere else, just let us know. Yes, scanning for CVEs. We need to see if that's a blocker per Marco. Should we have use cases without prow? I guess that comes at the beginning too, because that affects step 2. And would be part of general setup.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Like, should we allow people to build images outside Prow and push them to staging?
I mean, the better question is, should we be building images without cloud build jobs triggered by Prow?
So in replacement of this question, the
Yeah,
more precise wording
write the
is,
proper replacement.
so
Oh no, you have a hand up.
So I think there's an issue with the question where if we basically say we don't use Proud to build images, what's the criteria to trust that third party of external tool for build images? Because basically we use Proud because we can trust it, we have access to the infrastructure using that, and we are in control of the code base in some extent. So my question will be, if we basically decide to allow the project to use another tool, how we build trust on that?
I would say that's where provenance comes into play. And signatures.
But provenance can be manipulated, and signature are basically just attached to an image. So we can also do that. The security posture with provenance or signature is not better. Because we don't basically, currently, a lot of people don't verify the image we publish, even if we have signatures.
I just want to be mindful of time. We have 5 minutes left. Arno, could you rephrase that as a question that we should explore? Like, summarize what you think the issue is, and then I think it belongs under validating signatures, right? We can put this as a task for further exploration. So can you summarize what you're pointing out? Great,
Yes.
thank you. How would you do it? Oh, if you can say it out loud, and I'll just type it in as a post-it if you're writing it somewhere.
I'm trying to write it, so I will just write it before talking, so I will leave the mic to someone else.
Okay.
I can do both.
Okay, I'll just put here Arno's point, and then we'll make sure we capture it. Just so we work through all of these steps, and let's move on to these. Mohammed's writing a follow-up question, I think, from the previous evaluation question. So
this is the actual answer.
Okay. So with this running job step, we noted it takes a long time. It's related to mirroring. We need to figure out if we will add new mirrors based on the trade-offs and length of the release time. Some context about how we tried to figure out what was taking so much time. What would be an ideal length for the promotion? For figuring out current status, we'll create a table providing the lengths of different release scenarios. Besides making this parallel, we could make it more asynchronous. So I think that would be a work step that would just basically be done in service to this step that would have a domino effect for the rest of the steps. Is that Is that true, or should it actually be tied to one of these steps afterward?
I think it's true. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens here? Okay. A 10-minute wait per CI job that does promotion. So again, about time. This one's also about time. This is where now we start. Yeah, this is time. So here we have some action: splitting the tool, reconciliation job option that speaks to rewriting and splitting the tool, to not sign things in parallel. So these are our two actions that emerge from looking at this step. Do they affect that step, or should we move them later? Like, I guess when you're talking about splitting the tool, are you talking about splitting up some of these steps further, splitting them from each other? What could that look like?
Yeah, I think that was what is the main idea, to split up those steps. For example, doing the stuff for validation, everything which is around validation, and ensuring that the data is in the correct shape is something we can do before doing the promotion. The actual promotion could be minimized somehow. I'm not sure exactly how, to do the minimal amount of work that the image is available in the production registry, or the, let's say, the artifact. We speak about artifacts, all kind of artifacts. And then we do the rest, probably just the mirroring and the signature creation. I'm not sure if there's anything else on top of that. We'll add some asynchronous reconciliation job.
Okay. So we're almost out of time. So what I recommend for next steps is this: like, I'll organize these notes so that they're more in a sequence, and classify facts from distinguish facts from action items. And then it sounds like we need to investigate how to actually go about splitting. Like, what is in the way code-wise? What do you think? Like, we talked about breaking this monolith down into parts, so it sounds like we need to get clear on how we could actually do that breakdown. What would have to happen?
Now, I'm not sure if breaking down should be the focus now, because breaking down brings security risks.
Okay.
That was the problem that we had since the beginning.
Okay.
Like, okay, maybe we can split it, like pushing the image to registry and signing images, but then we have to be careful of security implications that might bring.
Okay. So what would you propose instead? How do we, I'm clear, like, we want to separate validating and parsing the input data from the validating the signatures and then the signing of the signatures. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
these would be
think
our, here, I'll just color these differently. Validating signatures and signing. So what would you do?
Question for Sasha. We had something in the past that we tried to measure how much each step takes. Do we still have that in place, or was it removed?
It's still in place, but we have to sum up the time for steps we want to combine.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to figure out how much each step is taking time, and then figuring out, like, say, try to figure out, like, what might be candidate for breaking at some point.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so you want to have more data before you take any next steps on what to focus on in terms of splitting splitting steps based on the length of time that they're contributing to the release. Is that?
Yes, that's one part of it. Other part of it is that I think we should make a decision. Maybe we could use all of the SIG release meetings to try to get some folks that have experience with this as well. Some more of them, mainly thinking of Carlos and Puerco, is about the validating signatures, like how exactly we want to handle that. I'd like to try to figure out like what's the best way forward there.
Okay.
And then that might provide some more data.
Okay. Okay, so we are over time, so I guess we should stop. Well, thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Laurie, for staying with us and making this planning session happen.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all your contributions.
Let's follow up on Slack.
Okay.
Good. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.